Hello friends, welcome to UGC EPG Pathshala Learning Sessions. I am Dr. Poonam Sharma, Associate Professor, Department of Geography, Shahid Bhagat Singh College, University of Delhi. Today I am going to discuss a module on environmental geography and the topic is Ecological Pyramids. The learning objectives of this modules would include the introduction, concept of ecology, the perspectives of ecology, ecosystem organization, energy flow and nutrient cycle, ecosystem productivity, ecological efficiencies, and ecological pyramids and its critical understanding. Have you ever thought about why there are so many plants and animals? Why there are so many different types of plants and animals? How many living in the same habitat but different? How is it possible that it sustains in one habitat but perishes in another? How resources are shared in the habitat? The abundance, the scarcity, the resource partitioning, how it is happening? How non-living environment have a wonderful role to play in the ecosystem. To discuss the ecological pyramids, let us first understand the concept of ecology. Ecology is a multidisciplinary field encompassing the biological, physical and social sciences. It is the scientific study of relationships in the nature. It is the study of interactions between organisms and their environment. It is concerned with relationships, distributions, abundance, scarcity, competitions and cooperations among the organisms in an environment. The environment comprises of two distinct components, that is the physical environment, which includes water, wind, soil, temperature, alkalinity, salinity, etc., and biotic environment that includes the interdependence and interactions among the organisms. Ecology includes material and processes ranging from the physiological genetics of small organisms to carbon balance in the entire biosphere. There are numerous ways to study the material system of ecology at different scales. If the relationships between organisms and their physical environment are explored, it is called physiological ecology. Community ecology explains interactions between organisms of different species. It is population ecology when associations between organisms of same species are studied. And ecosystem ecology explains the interdependence between organisms and the movement of matter and energy through the biological systems. The word ecology was coined by Professor Ernest Haeckel in 1866 in the book General Morphology. The word ecology has been derived from the Greek word oikos, which means house. Logos means study. He defined ecology as, by ecology we mean the body of knowledge concerning the economy of nature, the investigation of total relations of the animals both to its organic and to its inorganic environment, including above all its friendly and inimical relation with those animals and plants with which it comes directly or indirectly into contact. In a word, ecology is the study of all complex interrelations referred to by Darwin as the conditions of struggle for existence. The term ecology was coined in 1866, but it was not recognized and widely used for long, and it was the term that became institutionalized with the formation of British Ecological Society in 1913 and Ecological Society of America in 1915. Many scholars have used this term with different perspectives to the original Haeckel's definition. Thus, it was seen that Haeckel's definition of ecology was applied by various scientists in a much diversified ways. This aspect can be further explained that how the study of ecology is approached in numerous ways, as illustrated in figure 1 and 2. For example, the types of ecology as defined by concept or perspective, which includes landscape, ecosystem, physiological, behavioral, community and many other kind of ecology. If it is defined by organisms, it comprises plants, animals, microbes, zooplankton, human and many other organisms. When ecology is explained in terms of habitat, the kind of ecology it includes are terrestrial, marine, freshwater, Arctic, equatorial forest, urban and many more. There is another perspective to the definition of ecology, that is with reference to the application. The type of ecology which encompasses are theoretical, conservation, restoration, management, academic, public policy and so on. Ecological studies are not restricted to natural systems, rather understanding of both the human impact on nature and the ecology of environment created by human. Now, we are going to discuss the concept of ecosystem ecology. Ecosystem ecology studies the interdependence and interactions between organisms and their environment as a complex system. The ecosystem approach is vital in understanding interactions that link biotic component with the physical systems on which they depend. The term ecosystem was coined by British ecologist Arthur Tansley in 1935. He defined ecosystem as whole. He defined ecosystem as the whole complex of physical factors, that is the environment of the habitat and organisms complex. Tansley emphasized that it is not easy to study the interactions of organisms separately from the physical and chemical features of their environment. He proposed that organisms and their physical chemical environment be studied in an integral way called ecosystem. Though the organisms are essential concerns, but they cannot be separated from their unique environment with which they form the unified whole system. It is these unified systems so formed are the basic unit of the nature on the face of the earth. The ecosystem dynamics conceptualization evolved from Shelford in 1918, where food chain has no link through the detritus feeder. Stone 1928 elaborated the system with the decomposers as the center to the system, and Lindman in 1942 have developed the concept and introduced the unity of energy and nutrients. Odom in 1969, integrating Tansley, other scholars and Lindman's conceptions in a contemporary light with human as critical component, gives it a grand view. Ecosystem analysis seeks to understand the factors that direct the quantities and flows of material and energy through the ecological systems. These materials are found in abiotic pool, which are physical chemical substances, inorganic elements and compounds, which include calcium, oxygen, carbon dioxide, carbonates and phosphates in soil, rocks, water and the atmosphere in the array and an array of inorganic compounds which are the byproducts of organisms' activities, which and also include the novel chemicals such as pesticides or radionuclides that have been added to the environment. The abiotic factors also include physical factors such as moisture, winds, heat, light, current and tides. The biotic pool such as plants, animals and soil, microbes existing in that abiotic setting. There is great diversity in the types of ecosystem from small to large, terrestrial to aquatic, freshwater to saltwater and so on. The objectives of ecosystem ecology is to understand the functioning of ecosystem that include the flow of energy and matter through the organisms and their environment. Energy from the sun is captured by plants, which can be consumed by animals and further by the next level organisms and microbes. Thus, ecosystem ecology is concerned to understand the fundamentals of the production of organic energy, its transfer among other organisms, nutrient cycling among organisms and environment, the problems of environmental management, the impact of human activities on environment and many other interactions of people and nature. Now, let us attempt to understand the ecosystem organization. How ecosystem is organized. A system consists of constantly interacting and interdependent components forming a unified whole. Organizationally, ecosystems are constituted hierarchical. The community and non-living environment functions together as an ecological system or ecosystem. Hierarchical theory provides a convenient framework for subdividing and examining the complex structure. Individuals which are at the base of hierarchy compose a species and population at the following level. Communities are the next order. It is these communities existing in particular physico-chemical environment constitute an ecosystem. The aggregation of all ecosystems on the earth is referred to as ecosphere, the ecosystem for the whole planet. In this pyramidal hierarchy, there are many individuals at the base, a smaller number of species and individuals at the next order, fewer population than species at the further next and so on. Different categories of organisms fit together in the biotic structure and the feeding relationships between organisms constitute the trophic structure. All ecosystems have the same three basic categories of organisms that are connected in the same way. The major categories of organisms are producers, consumers and decomposers. These groups together manufacture food, transfer along the food chains and return the initial material to the abiotic part of the environment. Producers are also called autotrophs. That implies the organisms which prepare their own food, their own organic material from the inorganic constituents of the environment. Producers perform the fundamental task, uses the radiant energy of the sun and in the process of photosynthesis assimilates energy rich carbon compounds. They are mainly chlorophyll carrying green plants. Producers are of varied types, ranging from microscopic photosynthetic bacteria, single-celled algae, through the small-sized plants such as grass and cacti to the medium-sized plants and the massive trees. Chemosynthetic producers prepare organic material in anaerobic conditions of deep ocean floors in the absence of sunlight. Consumers are the organisms whose nutritional needs are met by feeding on to the other organisms. They are also called heterotrophs. Primary consumers or herbivore is a heterotroph that obtains its nutrition from plants, followed by carnivore, the secondary consumer, that feed on the herbivore, which may further provide nutrition to tertiary and higher order consumers, and omnivore, which obtain their energy from both plants and herbivore. This autotroph to heterotroph, producer to consumers, and herbivore to carnivore connections are directions of energy transfer through the ecosystem, which is one way and not a cyclic movement. Decomposers are the heterotroph organisms which feed mainly on dead organic matter. Mainly it includes bacteria, fungi and protozoa. They do not consume food in ingestive manner as herbivore or carnivore, rather through the absorption process. Chemicals or enzymes are produced within their bodies which are released on dead plants or animals. Terrestrial bacteria act on animal tissue and fungi work on plant tissues. In the aquatic ecosystem, decomposers mineralize. In the aquatic system, decomposers mineralize the organic matter. Eventually, the waste products of the final line of decomposers are energy poor mineral nutrients that are released and reabsorbed. Thus, the recycled by plants again into the system. There is a symbiosis in the interactions in the ecosystem, which implies an interaction between individuals of different biological species. One of the organisms receive a benefit from the interaction, the other can either receive a benefit or may be harmed or not be affected in any way. The three main kinds of symbiotic relationships are communalism, mutualism and parasitism. Now, I am going to explain you the fundamental functions of the ecosystem. These are energy flow and nutrient cycling. The two vital ecological processes of energy flow and nutrient cycling is constantly working in the ecosystem is the central to the dynamics of ecosystem. The former has been explained as unidirectional movement, while later is a cyclic movement. The flow of energy in the ecosystem and the law of thermodynamics says, as per the first law of thermodynamics, energy is converted from one form to the another and it is neither gained or lost. The second law of thermodynamics states that every transformation results in some loss of usable energy. The transformation of energy from the producers of the ecosystem to herbivore through carnivore and further trophic levels and to the decomposers. In these transformations, energy is flowing in a unidirectional way and some is lost as well. The loss occurs largely in the form of heat as byproduct of the metabolic reactions. Within ecosystem, nutrient is used and cycled within organisms and among organisms with their environment. In contrast of energy flow from the space through the Earth's environment and then back to the space, matter is not lost to the space, but it is recycled within the Earth's environmental system. The cycling of nutrient through the ecosystem is called biogeochemical cycles because these pathways involve biological, geological and chemical processes. There are two types of nutrient cycles which include sedimentary and gaseous cycles. Sedimentary cycles are very long cycles, maybe hundreds or millions of years. Gaseous cycles are exchanged between biosphere, atmosphere without going into the lithosphere. This is much faster cycle, maybe hundreds of years. For example, carbon, nitrogen and oxygen cycles. Now, let's understand ecosystem productivity concept. The productivity of an ecosystem is of two types, that is primary productivity and secondary productivity. The primary productivity of an ecosystem is the rate at which organic matter is produced during the photosynthesis process. There are two variations in the primary productivity. The gross primary productivity GPP is the total fixation of energy by photosynthesis, which is expressed in kilocalorie per meter square per year. Part of this energy is used as plant matter and rest of the chemical energy is metabolized by plant's own respiration and released to the environment as heat. Subtracting this respiration from GPP gives the net primary productivity. It represents the actual rate of production of new biomass that is available for consumption by heterotrophic organisms. Biomass is the mass of an ecosystem component per unit area per unit time. The productivity of an ecosystem is the rate of generation of new biomass. It may be expressed either in energy per unit area or as weight. The total quantity of organic matter available at any given time is called the biomass. The productivity depends on various factors such as sunlight, temperature, rainfall, availability of nutrients and also indirect impact of the intervention of human activities. For comparing different ecosystems, productivity is usually included over the year to compute annual production, that means generation of new biomass per unit area in a year. A common ecological measure of efficiency is the trophic level efficiency, the rate of production at one trophic level to that of the next trophic level. The rate of production of new biomass by heterotrophs or by consumers from the net primary production available to them is called secondary production. Though there are large variations from one ecosystem to another system, with reference to energy content, the transfer is only about 10%, and grossly for every 10 kilocalories of plant obtainable to herbivore, about 1 kilocalorie is consumed and 0.1 kilocalorie is absorbed in the form of body weight and and in the similar way the amount of energy transfer dwindles with each transfer. There are optimum conditions for an organism. Low and high limiting factors create a condition of tolerance, threshold, and may become acute if conditions are not corrected, where the survival is at stake. The disturbance from the external environment include the sudden events of flood, storms, droughts, etc. These situations disrupts the flow of basic component of the photosynthesis. For example, extreme soil erosion will reduce availability of nutrients or physical damage to plant foliage due to storm. Ecosystems are in state of incessant adjustment with these sudden and progressive changes. The ratio of net primary production that gushes along the pathways depends on the transformation efficiencies in the way energy is used and transferred from one level to the next. Ecological efficiency is the ratio of the biomass integrated by consumer trophic level to the biomass from its lower trophic categories. Some of these efficiencies are explained here. For example, photosynthetic efficiency is the percentage of received solar energy a plant utilizes in complete photosynthesis process. It can be derived by dividing GPP by the solar input of energy per unit area per unit time. Similarly, consumption efficiency is the percentage of total productivity available at one trophic level, which is consumed by a trophic category at one level up. Assimilation efficiency is the percentage of food energy ingested by consumers in a trophic category, and the remainder is lost as fecal waste that enters the decomposer's system. Production efficiency is the percentage of assimilated energy which is included into new biomass, and the remainder is entirely lost as heat. Exploitation efficiency is the net productivity of each trophic level as a proportion of the net productivity of the previous level. Now, I am going to elaborate the concept of ecosystem pyramids. Ecological pyramids concept was first discussed by British ecologist Charles Elton in 1920s for the first time. He explained this feature about the energy flow in the ecosystem. He established the principle that there is not enough energy to support more than very few carnivore at the top level. The trophic relationships of food chain, the ecosystem productivity, and the flow of energy of organic matter among different organisms are visualized through flow models, statistical models, and also as static pyramids. An ecological pyramid is used to graphically represent the structure of ecosystem depicting the new biomass at various trophic levels. The pyramid shows first trophic level or producers at the bottom that forms the base, followed by successive tiers of the trophic categories of consumers. By photosynthesis, energy enters at the producers level, which is the base of the trophic categories. Energy flows through the food chain, moving up in the chain through various levels of consumers. Due to inefficient energy transfers from one level to the next, energy reaching to the higher levels is very low. It is very interesting to note that number and biomass of the organism differs across various trophic levels, which are influenced by amount of energy available at the trophic level. The relationship between energy, biomass, and number is subjective to the growth, form, the size of organism and the ecological relationships occurring among the trophic levels. There are three types of ecological pyramids: energy pyramid, biomass pyramid and number pyramid. Let us first understand energy pyramid. An energy pyramid conveys the general trophic relations in the system and confirms that major principle of progressive decline of energy in the higher trophic levels. It is a graphical method that shows the energy flow in ecosystem through a pyramid shape. Producers play vital role in the food chains and webs, as they are capable to transform radiant energy of the sun into large amount of organic energy through the process of photosynthesis. The organisms at the consumer's level feed on plants. At this level, the pyramid size is smaller than the plants, and energy is used for growth, reproduction and respiration. The secondary consumers depend on primary consumers, and the pyramid size further reduces, and in further movements to the tertiary and higher order consumers, the energy transfer becomes lesser and lesser, thus the size of pyramid. It is estimated that 90% of energy is released in respiration and only 10% is available to the next level. As shown in figure 4 and 5, this pyramid shows that energy is highest at lowest level and is minimal at the highest category, explains that there is successive loss of energy as it moves through the trophic levels. Biomass pyramid. Biomass is the mass of organisms per unit area of ground or water. It is usually expressed per unit area in terrestrial ecosystem, and for aquatic system it is expressed per unit area or volume. The biomass pyramid graphically illustrates the quantity of biomass generated or available at each trophic level. Biomass decreases with each movement in the food chain. The autotrophs or producers generate the highest biomass in the ecosystem. The quantity of biomass prepared by herbivore is lesser than the producers, and for carnivore and higher order consumers, the biomass generation is very small. Biomass at the trophic levels depend upon the reproductive potential and longevity of the organisms. The biomass pyramids are of two types for different ecosystems. Figure 6 and figure 7 explains, number 1, upright pyramid is observed in terrestrial ecosystems with broader base where producers generate larger net biomass to support the consumers with smaller weight. Number 2, inverted pyramids are seen in aquatic ecosystem where smaller weights of the producers provide growth support to the consumers of large weight. Now we come to number pyramids. This is another graphical way to represent the structure of ecosystem in terms of energy by carrying out a census of each of the major categories to produce the pyramid number. The number pyramid illustrates the trophic relationships in terms of the number of autotrophs and heterotrophs, or the number of producers, different consumers, that is herbivore, carnivore and further higher order consumers in the successive chain on trophic category. This pyramid explains that the number of individuals decline from lower to higher levels of trophic category. This pyramid also varies as the energy and biomass pyramid from one ecosystem to another, as it can be seen from figure 8, 9 and 10. It explains upright number pyramid is witnessed in forest ecosystem, as these ecosystems have huge number of small producers to support lesser primary consumers, which further provide support even smaller secondary consumers, and they give nutrition to just a few tertiary consumers. It is because of this type of transfer of organic matter the shape of the pyramid is upright. The inverted number pyramid is observed in parasitic food chain where one primary producer sustains several parasites and which in turn supports many more hyperparasites. Hyperparasite is an organism which is parasitic on or in another parasite. The next is partly upright or spindle shape number pyramid, and it is seen in the forest ecosystem where smaller number of producers maintain large number of primary consumer, which further supports only a few secondary and tertiary consumers. If the energy, biomass and number pyramids of the same ecosystem are compared, it is clear that the base is broader in each type of presentations and it is narrowed down towards the top, as it can be seen in figure 11. Let us discuss the demerits of the pyramid method for showing the ecosystem trophic relationships. In the critique, these graphical methods provide comprehensive and illustrious understanding of the structure and functioning of ecosystem through the pyramid of energy, biomass and numbers. But demerits are observed. For example, energy pyramid does not have provision to show the decomposers and to represent loss of energy. In biomass pyramid, it is assumed that significance of unit are same for varied group of organisms in a trophic level. In case of number pyramid, besides all these limitations, the additional problem is that all the organisms are considered same, such as a bunch of small grass at the producer level is of same value as the carnivore in the secondary or tertiary trophic level. Therefore, the static pyramid model of an ecosystem are impressive graphical methods for understanding, but is not a functional model to describe energetics of the ecosystem as flow models and mathematical formulation and computer replications. That's all for today's discussion. I hope the discussion was fruitful and value added your understanding of the concept of ecological pyramids. Thanks for visiting the site and viewing. Goodbye. See you in the next talk.